While he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, wildlife TV personality Forrest Gallant mentioned an interesting dragon theory. He brought up the belief that dragon stories were actually people interacting with living dinosaurs. A while later, Joe Rogan jokingly posted a link to a documentary promoting this theory. I wanted to take a look at this documentary because I found it interesting, and it actually covers stuff I previously talked about on this channel. To start, the video claims that cultures all over the world have legends of dragons. They suggest that this is because these legends were actually sightings of living dinosaurs. Now, while it's true that dragon legends are widespread, these legends have wildly varying descriptions. Sometimes dragons have facial hair, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they live in water, sometimes they fly. Many dragon legends don't even describe them having wings. So while there are a lot of legends, they aren't describing the same thing or even similar things. It should be noted that this documentary was produced by Genesis Park. They're a creationist group known for going on expeditions to prove the existence of living dinosaurs. If you're not familiar, creationism, specifically young Earth creationism, is the belief that the Earth is only about 6,000 years old. A part of this belief system is that dinosaurs didn't go extinct millions of years ago like it's currently believed, but actually coexisted with humans. In the documentary, they cite the word dragon appearing in the Bible 34 times as evidence that people back then knew dragons were real animals.
Notice the words of the psalmist. You shall tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion, and the dragon shall you trample under feet. From the context, it is clearly speaking about a real creature that it would be impressive and intimidating to step on.
I think this is pretty clearly a metaphor for overcoming a great obstacle with the help of God. It's not even the only time that the word dragon is used symbolically. In Ezekiel chapter 29 verse 3 they say, Behold, I am against thee, Pharaoh king of Egypt, the great dragon that lieth in the midst of his rivers. Now, unless you think the Pharaoh of Egypt was actually a dragon, it's clear that they don't use dragon literally. The documentary also cites the discovery of a dinosaur fossil called Dracorex hogwartsia as a dragon-like fossil. The problem is, this fossil was found in South Dakota, while the dragon it supposedly resembles is from Europe. The video then discusses old alleged reports of living dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and plesiosaurs.
After Alexander the Great invaded India, he brought back reports of seeing a great hissing dragon living in a cave.
The problem with this story is that it didn't even appear until over 4 centuries after Alexander the Great lived. No sources at the time described the dragon, and it wasn't mentioned at all until the historian Alienus wrote about it. Alienus also isn't very dependable, as he tended to highly dramatize his descriptions of animals. He once wrote that beavers were nocturnal predators that would attack people. As paleontologist Phil Center points out, the description of the animal is also very off, with an impossibly large eye 2 feet or 70 centimeters wide.
It seems that when Regulus, a Roman consul, fought against Carthage, a dragon suddenly crept up and settled behind the wall of the Roman army. The Romans killed it, skinned it, and sent the hide to the Roman Senate. Dio claimed the hide was measured by order of the Senate and found to be 120 feet long.
Whether or not this story is actually real, there is absolutely no reason to think it was a sauropod like the documentary shows. The sources pretty clearly describe it as a giant snake, not a dinosaur-like animal. An account by the historian Erroneus even explicitly says that it doesn't have feet.
The well-respected Greek researcher Herodotus wrote, There is a place in Arabia, situated very near the city of Buto, to which I went, on hearing of some winged serpents. And when I arrived there, I saw bones and spines of serpents in such quantities as it would be impossible to describe. The form of the serpent is like that of the water snake, but he has wings without feathers and is like as possible to the wings of a bat.
Phil Center points out that a snake with wings doesn't really resemble a pterosaur at all. Pterosaurs had feet, a large beak, and lacked the scales of a snake. The fossils of pterosaurs also look way different than a simple snake with wings. Since Herodotus supposedly saw the bones, he probably would have described the beak if they really were pterosaurs. Flying snakes are actually a common type of cryptid that have been reported around the world. Eyewitnesses describe them as snakes with wings, not living pterosaurs. This is a drawing based on eyewitness testimony from a South African documentary. As you can see, it's basically just a normal snake with wings, and it lacks the features of a pterosaur.
Hans Egede, missionary to Greenland, was known to keep a meticulous recording of natural observations. He documented a sea monster which he saw off the coast in 1734. A well-publicized serpent-like sea monster sighting was made by the crew and officers of HMS Daedalus in August of 1848. The creature they saw measured approximately 60 feet long and sported a mane on its head.
Both of these sea serpent reports are cited as plesiosaur sightings, but neither really resembles a plesiosaur at all. The Daedalus serpent didn't have flippers or an especially long neck based on the eyewitnesses' descriptions and drawings. Egede's serpent at least had flippers, but it didn't have a long neck, and it was said to spout water like a whale. In addition to reports, they also discuss art that supposedly shows dinosaurs. One example shown are the Ica stones, stones found in Peru that supposedly have dinosaurs engraved on them. Unfortunately, these stones were later exposed as hoaxes created to be sold to people. One animal on these stones, the Triceratops, never even lived in South America.
China's oldest known dragon depiction is a curious discovery found at the ancient Jishuipo cemetery ruins along the Yellow River in Henan province. There, 3 artistic dragons, along with tigers and other animals, composed entirely of white shells, were placed alongside human remains. The Jishuipo site dates back several thousand years, yet the dragons shown are surprisingly like modern renditions. This shows the dragon concept did not slowly develop through Chinese history from a simplistic, primitive, mythological form. This is evidence that they were modeled after living creatures.
This also has a simpler explanation. People who drew dragons over the years based their drawings on older pieces of art. The documentary ends with this statement.
By the 19th century, dragons had largely been wiped out by expanding civilizations. Men viewed them as a threat and hunted them down, both to safeguard new lands for settlement and to prove their dominance. The changing ecosystems and rise of colonial empires drove many species, including most of the great reptiles, into extinction. And so ended the historical age of dragons and men.
While this is a tidy explanation for why we don't still see dinosaurs, if we really did hunt dragons to extinction, I think we'd have more physical evidence of it. Humans love having trophies, and it's not like we don't have taxidermies from the 19th century. While I think it's certainly possible that dragons may have been inspired by fossils, I don't think they were inspired by living dinosaurs. Most of us would love for there to still be dinosaurs out there in the world, but the evidence is lacking. This is why it's important to think critically about cryptozoological theories and to double-check sources. I'll put a link to the full documentary below. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate you subscribing, liking, and sharing it with someone you think may also enjoy it. Thank you to my Patreons Gerhard, Jason, Timothy, Wildworld, and John R. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, a link will be in the description. It really is a big help, and it lets me do further research into obscure topics. Huge shout out to Phil Center, as his writing on dragons was very entertaining. I'll also link his YouTube channel below. I'd also like to give a thank you to the Cryptid Archive Wiki and Pondicherry. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.